Hey guys, I'm Rachel O'Leary and I have a confession. Not only am I addicted to houseplants, I am also addicted to carnivorous plants. This is my temperate bog garden that I built by myself in April of 2018. I utilized a Bradley sink, which is an old foot pedal hand washing station from an industrial setting. And it had some unique obstacles. First of all, that it's made out of terrazzo, which is not inert. And one thing about carnivorous plants is they need soil that has absolutely no nutrients. You need to have a really low TDS environment for them. As in the wild, they grow in really deep peat bogs of decaying matter. So there's little nutrient content, which is why they develop the adaptation to eat bugs. So I wanted to be able to make sure that I kept this garden really well hydrated. So I built this frame out of PVC and then took some pond liner to line the terrazzo so that it wouldn't leach any of its mineral content into the bog garden. I mean, this was a super simple concept, but I really wasn't sure if it was going to work at all. I then glued the liner into the sink using just regular silicone. And I left some sort of wrinkles and gaps at the top so that excess water would be able to drain out so it wouldn't become too waterlogged. I then hydrated a bunch of peat and added the standpipe to be able to water this garden. I find that watering these plants from the bottom up is really the best way for it. I then added just some loose lava rubble in the bottom so that things wouldn't become too compacted, and then added in equal parts of black blasting sand and the hydrated peat. Now, I then just planted it up with a bunch of plants that I'd had around. I've been using these guys, carnivorous plants in particular, in floating planters in my mini ponds in my yard for years, but they never flowered. They never got particularly large, which is why I really wanted to try making this bog garden for them. So I just planted them in there and waited, and within a few months, you could tell that there was some really obvious growth. And I also added sphagnum moss to the surface of the soil in this garden because I was worried about soil integrity. We have a lot of wildlife in this area, and if birds picked them, I didn't want them to carry away my plants. So I planted a bunch of live sphagnum on the surface just to hold that soil in place as these plants continued to grow and as I added more plants. By that fall, the plants had grown magnificently. I was really stoked. I had a bunch of flowers. You know, it still looked pretty empty, but for it being its first season in place, I was really stoked. I have continued to add a lot of plants to this garden, trying to group them by rough approximate adult size so that it has a nice overall appearance. Now, this is where it was last fall at about a year and a half old, and you can see how huge all the plants have gotten. The garden is really becoming a showpiece, and I can't wait to see what it looks like this year. This is late in the fall, so you can see that the plants are starting to show that they are they're getting ready to go dormant, as all of these plants do go dormant for the winter. But it's just a really beautiful and rewarding garden. Now, I do water it with captured rainwater. I have a collection system built off the gutters of my greenhouse, as carnivorous plants need very dilute water, and either RO or captured rainwater is really the best thing for them. The TDS needs to stay under about 100 in order for these guys to really thrive, and they have just put on size. Everything flowers. Everything's grown. Everything is spreading. I added a ton of little orchids and some companion plants, and really some of the species have even become weeds. I am so excited to see what this garden looks like this year at 2 years old. I think it's going to be really spectacular. So if you're interested in seeing that, make sure you're subscribed with that notification bell on, as I would like to do some species spotlights on the various types of plants I have in this garden, go into more detail about their care, and really just share these super, super fascinating plants. Now, I know they have a reputation for being difficult, but I think, as with most things, if you just know some key factors, they really aren't hard at all and are so rewarding. Now, I do overwinter this garden in place. I cover it with lengths of burlap and then about 6 to 12 inches of pine litter to insulate these guys, because while in the wild they're not from super cold areas, it's more about how fast they get cold than how cold they get. So insulating them well ensures that they come back each spring and really do just fine. In fact, all of the species in my garden actually require a cool down, so it works out well. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed seeing the evolution of my bog garden. I know I can't wait to show you its progress this year, as I'm sure it's going to be spectacular. Thanks as always for your continued support.